Hi and welcome to the She Will Shine podcast. Today we're on the couch with the lovely Ilana Kosakiewicz. Please say that I've said that correctly.
You have.
Yay!
Absolutely. Which everyone usually has to ask.
Yeah, which I did before we started recording.
How do I say it?
And Ilana is a kinesiologist and yoga teacher.
Yeah.
But her journey has been a different one. So we're going to sort of just jump right in, Ilana, and can you share with us how you were maybe as a child and how that's, that's impacting you now?
Yeah, so as a child I had severe asthma from about 2.5, 3 years old, and my parents did everything. They tried all the medications that the doctors give you, and then they went and did some natural stuff. So I did like the pricking of the allergy testing, and I was a 5-year-old who had to have a buckwheat birthday cake, which back then they literally taste like cardboard.
Yeah. Not as fancy as the intolerant things we have now.
Yeah, so I couldn't have eggs because they decided to take me off an elimination, so eggs and dairy and wheat. And so going to school, it was like this, Mum would have to buy naturopathic, go to the health food store and get this rye bread or this.
And the health food store wasn't as readily available as they are now, I presume?
No, but we luckily had one in our town or the next town, so it wasn't too bad.
So you grew up in Gippsland?
Yeah, so down in Morwell, Traralgon area, and there was a health food store which had some breads that I could eat, but I remember swapping sandwiches quite often, like not full sandwiches, because I was like, I don't want to eat this bread. It's awful. So that was probably really hard, to tell a 5-year-old that
she can't, that age,
or 6-year-old that she can't enjoy birthday parties.
You can't eat what the other kids are eating.
Yeah. But then I ended up finding, I had the common cold all the time. I'd get bronchitis every year and tonsillitis maybe 2 or 3 times a year.
And so growing up, how was primary school and high school for you?
So I was grade probably was after I got severe glandular fever in grade 2.
Gosh, yeah. And glandular fever, that's like the one that's your body's run down. And
they call it kissing disease usually.
And you're in grade 2.
But, so my grandmother would look after me while my mum was at work.
Yeah.
But I couldn't go to work. I couldn't go to school for probably, I don't know, a month and a half.
Yeah, I remember one of my friends said that,
And then I'd go for half a day. And but I remember probably either later that year or coming into grade 3 being quite bullied at school. I lived next door to one of the most popular guys at school, and so because my dad was not necessarily dirty, but he was a bit of a hoarder, and we didn't have a garage door, we had just a carport. There would be stuff on the sides,
piled up on the sides,
and so I would get
which we all have in our garages, but the doors are down, so
nobody can see them. And because his parents were Greek and his mother was like one of those clean freaks.
I've got one of those.
And so, we weren't necessarily like that. And his parents were really rich and we weren't. I got bullied for that kind of.
And how do you think that kind of impacted you, as a child, but kind of coming into, growing up, then going into high school, how that kind of impacted you then?
It's probably more just affected my self-esteem and my self-confidence. And we now know that emotions can turn into, emotions are the core almost of health. If your emotional well-being is not well, you do get sick more often, and you're more likely to feel run down or attacked by life, which is probably what was happening for me at that time. And then as I moved into year 7, because I went to a high school where most of the same kids went to, they just say the same things to the new kids that you meet, and it just carries on, and you're on the same bus with all the same kids in the same, because we all lived in the same area. But it wasn't until about year 9 that I met a group of girls that things started to change. And then I think because once you get to about year 10, everyone matures, and everyone sort of by 11, 12 are quite at least respectful to each other, that things started to change. So
what sort of career aspirations did you have
at
that time?
Yeah, well, I mean, back in grade 4, I remember we had this one teacher, her name was Mrs. Wade, and she was really strict, quite actually probably more tomboy, but she was very stern and very strict, and I was like, I want to be a teacher.
You want to be stern and strict?
I don't know what it was, but I think because she had a funny side, but she could also, everyone was scared of her, like she had that control. No, and it was probably because no one was scared of her, and I was being bullied, that it was like, I want to feel.
That's why you liked that. You liked it because she was in control of the whole situation.
She didn't, and it didn't seem, no one seemed to, it didn't affect her. Yeah, so that was probably my childhood, like I'm going to be a teacher, which a lot of kids have. Yeah. And then into high school, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I mean, from 16, I was working 3 or 4 jobs.
From 16, 3 or 4 jobs.
So I did KFC, I was working at a chiropractor's and in a little clothing store. And then in year 11, I also worked at Justine's and JJ's.
Gosh. I had one job. What was it? 15 and what was it?
I think 15 and
14 and 9 months.
Yeah,
was that
like
legal age to start working? I had one job and I thought that was enough. But you had 4.
Well, I started with KFC, and then I was just doing the chiropractors on a Friday night, and then I was just doing the clothing store on a Saturday morning, and then it just all evolved. Eventually, it was just KFC, and then JJ's.
Was that your parents kind of saying, well, you got time to do another job, or was that you wanting to?
My parents didn't have a lot of money for us to, when you're 14, to you go to the movies or... Yeah. I mean, they did, but I wanted that independence. And so as soon as I could get a job, I got a job. So I had the money and the independence to buy the clothes that I wanted and to do the things that I wanted with my friends without having to be, not a burden, but...
Having to ask for it,
having to ask for it. And I think I was very independent and very responsible for a young age.
It sounds like it, yes.
Yeah, so I was making lunches, when I was, grade 6, and that continued. I pretty much made all my lunches in high school, and even with my brothers a little bit as well.
Yeah. So how many siblings have you?
2 younger brothers. Okay,
so you're the oldest.
Yeah, I'm the oldest. So I was also making sure that make sure you grab your blazer. And, because sometimes Mum would go to work before she'd left before we'd get on the bus. So
you
I was
took that
a little
role.
bit. Yeah, and then at home we'd get home from school and I'd be hungry, so I'd just start dinner. Yeah. Because I didn't want to wait till Mum got home.
Can you talk to my kids? Do you want to hang around a bit later, see my kids after school?
I think I've always been that organised type of... Yeah, that's just my personality. But going into high school, I really had no idea. And it was really hard for me to pick my year 11 and 12 subjects because I really still had no idea what I wanted to do. So I ended up doing Office Administration Cert 3 because that was one avenue I could do in admin if I wanted to. I did VCE dance. Yeah. I did business maths. I did accounting. I started off, I think, with chemistry, but I dropped it. But I did kind of a broader, which means my enter score wasn't all that high, but it was more broadering to here's some options. Yes.
You could go with this or that.
Wherever I really wanted to go. Because I was still dancing. So from age 5 to probably age 19, I did ballet quite heavily as well. So Eisteddfods every school holidays and dancing 3 or 4 times a week and privates and solos and troops and all of
I don't know how you did all that around those jobs.
I fitted it in. I probably dropped a little bit with the jobs. But even so, I was still dancing.
Yeah. So every night of the week you would have had something on?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you did accounting, you did some dance subjects, some science subjects. What did you decide to do?
So I ended up doing accounting.
Okay. And why did you choose, why did you choose accounting?
Because I loved numbers and I loved saving. So I had 4 jobs.
Of course, yes. This all makes sense.
Saving money. And from the time I started, I would always save a lot of my money because I knew if I wanted a car when I was 18, I would have to fund it.
Yep.
So that was probably the driving force around me pushing myself so hard in those sort of late teens, which I was always sick with something if I look back now. But it's because I wasn't good at sitting still and looking after myself. And so I was with was Loy Power, one of the power stations down there, and it was interesting. So my dad and my brother at one stage, one worked at Hazelwood, one worked at Your Lawn, and I worked at
So the whole family was employed by
And I enjoyed my degree. So I was lucky enough also that when I got into, I think it was my 4th year of uni, so I'd been studying part-time for 4 years and working full-time. They offered me a scholarship for 12 months. So for the first semester, I went back to uni completely full-time.
That would have been strange for you, focusing on one thing as opposed to having lots of things going on in your life.
Yeah, I ended up doing 5 subjects instead of 4.
Of course you did. There had to be something, and that was it.
push. But the reason was because then in the second semester, I only did 3 subjects, but I worked 2 days a week.
Yep.
So it was a way of, because the first semester I still got paid full time. And then the second semester I still got paid, but I was working. And I ended up doing a project for them, which was all about accounts, so accounts payable, was still being paid by cheque.
Okay, yes.
And so I had the project of making it all by EFT.
Yeah.
Or bank transfer. So that was my project I was...
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really empowering, and I've loved working on projects, but I did a very similar pattern everywhere I was in life. So whether it was with my family or my dancing, my work, I always put too much on my plate. So when I went back to work, I was doing my job, but then I was also doing a project.
Yeah.
And I was also in the gym committee.
Took on extra things.
I just always took on too many things.
So you wouldn't be the person that went home after work and just sat on the couch and relaxed. You always had to have something on. Yeah. No. So how many years were you in accounting for?
So I started 2002. Was it January 2003? And I hit rock bottom and left May 2014, and I didn't go back.
So when you say hit rock bottom, what does that mean?
So if we backtrack, if I keep going with the story, so that year I was at uni full time, and then I was probably in Gippsland, just purely Gippsland, for another 2 years. And then we had a Melbourne office, and I quite often would help the Treasury department out when someone was on leave, because there was only 2 people. And I liked it because I loved the city. All my friends in Gippsland were married and had kids, and I was like, got to get it. I just wanted to get out of the country. And so I loved going to the city. And so then there was a transition where I would actually work part-time Melbourne, part-time city, and do some of my work, and then help Treasury when they wanted. So I would work, I think Friday and Monday in Melbourne, and then drive home.
And work the other days.
And stay with Mum. Yeah. And then drive back to the city, and eventually I ended up getting an apartment. And that's how it worked for 2 years after that. Okay. But I loved that lifestyle, and I eventually met some great friends, and that's when I started doing Latin dancing in the city. But again, when I eventually, the year after, I think I moved to Melbourne full time, and that's when life was really exciting and new. I was making new friends. I was
enjoying the city life.
Yeah, but I was dancing, social dancing for Latin dancing starts about 10 o'clock at night.
Oh my gosh.
It goes anywhere from 2 to 3 in the morning. Yeah. And I would do that because I made a really close friend in Melbourne. We would do that every weekend, Friday and Saturday night, sometimes Sunday night, and I'd go home about midnight. And then I would get up, work some really long hours, because AGL, in all this moving to Melbourne and transition of here and there a couple of times a week, AGL brought us out, and so everything really changed at work, and the dynamics, and whether we're going to keep our jobs, they're going to make us redundant, and there was
a lot of stress
all of that
around
going on too. Yeah. But once I moved to the city, I pretty much had a full-time gig with AGL. Yeah. But I had a new boss who was from America, who was very go, push.
Expected a lot.
Yeah, which for 2, it was just him and I.
Yeah, 2 people. Yeah,
it's probably a little bit unrealistic. Yeah. But I still love the challenge, and I actually still love accounting. Yeah. It's just, and I love doing the bookkeeping for my business. It's just...
And probably the first person, apart from a bookkeeper, you're the first person.
Yes. I love it. Yeah. Everything in check, and it's the organiser in me that loves the balance and,
getting everything just
making
in
sure
the
it's
right
reconciled spot. But that's my life generally. I like everything to be in order, and that's kind of how it goes. So I've consistently pushed the boundary.
And pushed yourself.
Pushed, you know, like, because that 18 months that I was with AGL in the city, you know, I was always first in the office because I was used to a 7:30 start. So I was like, I got in and got a lot of work done when everyone would rock up at 9. So I'd probably get in between 7:30 and 8. But then you'd sometimes be there till 6.
Yeah.
And because
was that kind of your own?
A little bit, because I was still striving to please.
Yeah. Which you had done throughout your whole...
no boundaries, people pleasing, saying yes when I really should have been saying no, going into work when I was sick, or working from home on my laptop when I was sick.
Because you wanted everyone to be happy and have whatever they needed.
Yeah, like...
Not worried about what you needed.
Yeah. And so... 2012-13 Christmas period, I went to South America with the close friend that I made here, and we went dancing and partying, and it was amazing. Yeah. Went to Carnival and
amazing experience.
But I hadn't really taken a proper holiday in the whole time I'd worked with Wellbeing or AGL as it was then. I'd taken a week here or 2 weeks there, but I had banked so much annual leave that I could have probably gone away for 7 months. Yeah. But from when I got back from that trip, I got food poisoning. I mean, I got bitten by thousands of mosquitoes. But from that trip, I got back and I really didn't feel quite myself. Yeah. Now, I don't know if it was that or a combination of also, I now know, it's taken me a while, but since that trip, I'm really sensitive to vaccinations. Not that I have anything against them, but they don't like me. Yeah. So I don't know if it was a combination of, because you have to have yellow fever and everything. There's a lot. Yeah. It's not just one. And then I went overseas and basically partied for 3 months and didn't really sit still. And then I got back and went straight back into a crazy busy workload.
So you didn't actually, even though you had a holiday, it wasn't a relaxing, restful holiday.
And I remember I got the flu just before we went, and then I got home and I think I continuously was just unwell. Yeah.
And were you getting sicker and sicker?
I was getting tighter. It was just, I was like, why can't I, and when I was dancing, I was like, why don't I have the stamina that I used to have? Yeah. And it just progressively got worse and worse. It was because I wasn't putting myself first, and I had probably put most of my emotional baggage from my entire life in a box up until that point. And then I had a 1.5 years off, and then I started studying kinesiology in the March of 2014.
So what was the turning point in that? You were just looking for something else to study because you had spare time?
I had always wanted to. I remember when I was with my previous partner, his mum was quite sick with cancer, and so I was always researching things to help her.
Alternative
things. I mean, I'd always had supplements and stuff, and it was always part of my what my treatment plan was. But I was like, it was the first time I'd probably thought of, maybe I could do something else. Like, I love what I did.
But the first inclination of something else might be...
Like, well, I love what I do. Maybe I do give a lot or too much energy to that. But is it my passion? I was good at it. Yeah. Probably more the people part than the actual accounting. Yeah. But, yeah, it was the first time I thought, what do I do, naturopathy or do I do herbal medicine? I didn't even know what kinesiology was at that stage. So kinesiology became part of my journey before I got sick. So I had a sore right ankle, and so I'd had cortisone injections because I'd been to the doctor, and I had been to physios and chiros and anyone, and they hadn't been able to figure out what was going on. And then I went and saw in the city a applied kinesiologist chiropractor, which some of you probably know. Some chiropractors do kinesiology, the testing and stuff.
I didn't know that. There you go.
Yeah. So there's holistic kinesiology, which is kind of more what I've studied, and then there's applied. a lot of the principles are very similar because the muscle testing is very similar and the same, but theirs is more from the physical body, whereas we look at holistically everything in your life. And so that's how it started. And he started doing chiro adjustments, but the applied kinesiology and the muscle testing and giving me certain herbs and nutrients and things. And it started to...
And you were hooked.
Started to heal it.
Yeah.
And then I also saw he had a holistic kinesiologist in his practice, so I was seeing her and him.
Yeah, and that's when...
Yeah, and that's when I was like, this is really interesting how this works. Like, you touch a point of the body and you do a muscle test and then you rub it and then it holds and it's strong and you feel better when you leave. I was like, this is mind-blowing. Yeah. How does this work?
Yeah.
And so, I decided... I had a year or a year and a half off studying.
Yeah. You had a rest?
I had a rest. And then I started studying, it was Cert 4 in kinesiology.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. It was almost like the universe was like, you can't have a life being this Ilana and then study this.
It was so far removed, you feel?
Yeah. In some aspects, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was more, you can't start, because kinesiology is like peeling onions back. So you start to get to the deep roots of the core issues of why you are who you are, or why you have that pain, or why you haven't slept for 2 months, which is what ended up having.
So was it burnout? Do you feel like you just burned out?
So it was... Originally, I was diagnosed as adrenal fatigue, and we had all the saliva tests and everything that went with confirmed that. I think I was just emotionally and physically completely drained. But then I wasn't getting well, and so I was seeing a kinesiologist who also did a lot with Lyme's disease. And she said, I recommend you getting tested. The test was in America, so I had to have blood tests and have to be spun a certain way and they get sent to America. So that happened about 9 months after my original diagnosis, and that came back positive as well. So then I went through a whole lot of, probably for about 12 months or even maybe a bit longer. And I still follow a little bit of it because I may have it forever. I won't say that I'm cured from Lyme's disease, and I still get tired quite easily, but I know my limits now and I can manage.
You recognise them and actually listen to them.
Yeah. If we backtrack to what happened when I was in 2014, so it was kind of probably prior even to when I had started studying in the March. Couldn't get out of bed. I was sleeping a lot. Mind you, we just bought a house.
So the stress of the mortgage then with the job.
Well, it wasn't really that. It was September, October, November. We were looking at houses every single weekend, but we were still dancing, and we were still maintaining our life. We were just adding in things.
Instead of subtracting things to make space for it, you were just adding it on.
And then we went to Bali in that January, and
dancing and crazy in Bali, or relaxing in Bali.
Relaxing in Bali.
That's a first.
But I knew I was exhausted, but I left feeling no different. And I got back to work, and I broke out in a massive hives rash, which... You know what that's like. And I was like, what is going on? And, I had antihistamines or whatever. And then it just got worse and worse. And
so you're working full-time?
Yeah, working full-time. And I was only studying like 1 or 2 weekends a month or something. So
for you it was not much compared to what you were used to?
Yeah, it was not much at all. And I got to the April, and I was probably too scared to say to my boss, I think I'm not. Something's going on.
Yeah. Or people-pleasing, Ilana sort of said.
He was pushing me to be more like a manager, which I had no problem with. But then he was also pushing me to do a project, which I probably should have said to him, I'm not that great with writing code, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Why don't you get someone else to do it? And so I would muddle myself all the way through it. Rather than
with the stress of what am I doing here? I've got to learn all this stuff.
With all the other stuff that I was doing in my job. So I had a side project along with what I already had going on and a few other things. Yeah. It was pretty crazy.
And you were studying.
And I was studying.
Yeah.
And we just bought a new house. So like that January, February, every weekend we were going and buying furniture and all the things.
All the fun stuff. It's supposed to be fun stuff.
But it was exhausting for me. And then I got to May, or probably mid-April, and I wasn't sleeping. Just, that wired but tired. Completely wired but tired. But it was every single night. And I just kept pushing through. So
you're just getting progressively worse.
And it got to May, and I would start crying at my desk for no reason. And I would hide it. So like nobody knew. And I had no idea what was going on. I think I knew I was tired, and I was just putting it down to that, but I didn't realise that there was probably a lot of underlying things that I couldn't recognise at the time. And then 2 days before, or 3 days before my 30th birthday, it all came crashing down. Yeah. My boss was like, just take some time out. And my time out went to 2 weeks to never going back.
How interesting, yeah.
Because, and I think my intention was always to go back, but I think what ended up happening in the end was there was the fear that if I went back, it would start again.
Yeah, the pattern would repeat.
Yeah. And so while I probably was sabotaging it a little bit myself, now looking back, I probably easily, with the right protocol, could have gone back into that environment. But at the time, my partner had bought a cafe, so we had that stress as well as me getting well, because he bought the cafe about 4 months into my I think it was September 2014, which I didn't want him to buy, but it was probably one of the best things in terms of being a small business owner that we ever did together. It was hard, it was challenging, but now business seems like a breeze.
Yeah.
As
in comparison to that time.
And it doesn't mean that I'm making, thousands and thousands of dollars, but it set me up for like, oh my God, you can do this.
Yeah.
Because I had that fear before leaving AGL of starting a business.
So it was the perfect stepping stone in a way.
Almost.
Yeah.
Even though I had to muddle through the stress and all of that while I was getting well, it was.
And I guess as well because it was a shared stress. It wasn't you, like before you said you're sort of on your own.
Yeah. Dealing
with stuff that you didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Whereas at least this way you had someone else there with you.
Yeah, and I mean, even though Noah was like, it was more his business. I was still the accountant. I did all the accounting.
Yeah.
He did the payroll, which I was kind of happy with because he was mainly in the cafe. But I did, some of the ordering, most of the slices and stuff. I did the ordering and, probably training most of the staff because while I love my partner, he's not great with training staff. he's direct and I'm soft. Yeah. We're probably glue because of that. Even though we have had our ups and downs, which most relationships go through, if we can get through an illness and we can get through, the cafe, and even now we've dived into getting through, our dynamic now before we have kids. If we can get through all of that,
then you'll be rock solid
for a little while.
Yeah.
But I would say the main thing that I have had to learn through my whole healing journey was to put myself first and to really know my limits and my boundaries with what I'm capable of doing. I mean, I'm capable of doing everything. Yeah. And I would do it, but it's not sustainable. Yeah. And it took me 32 years, because I was 35 last week, to realise that. Yeah. That you can't do it all at once. No. Especially when you have a compromised, or more of a sensitive type of person who, has to look after themselves. Like that is not, it's a baseline for me. I can't, it's not even a negotiable that self-care is essential. And so I now am a kinesiologist to help women, but I also work with children, and I now also see quite a lot of men, helping them to put their needs first and to understand perhaps why they're feeling how they're feeling. Because while mine, yes, I you could say I had autoimmune or Lyme's disease or whatever it is. Again, it's just an immune system thing. The underlying cause of most of mine was not putting myself first, perhaps not feeling like I was enough, which is why I was in...
Yeah, or saying yes to everything.
Exactly. And also just allowing me to say no when I need to say no.
Giving yourself permission to do that. Yeah.
Which a lot of women find hard to do, especially when you're a mother and you have a family and you run a business or you have a job.
There's all these responsibilities sitting on your shoulders and you feel like you're going yes, 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 but then you're just completely worn out.
Yeah, and because society hasn't necessarily kept up with, like as in women have more rights now and we're expected almost to do double what our parents traditionally probably did. Self-care is essential now. It's not even negotiable, which is why I run most of my yoga classes and retreats around rest and restore.
Because that's what we always say we don't have time for.
Yeah, and it's amazing that even if I give these women and men 2 hours to just switch off, how much that shifts their energy or their emotion or their mindset in 2 hours or 3 hours. It's not even a long time. Yeah. And then if they continually do that, because everything is about maintenance, you know, it's great to come and see kinesiologists, you know, once a year. That's great. Yeah. But if you want the lasting results or working through what's going on, it's a consistency. It doesn't have to be every month, but it's a consistency of, you know, every second month or every third month.
And I guess it's training yourself to recognise when your body and when you need it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, you know, a lot of people see a chiropractor every month or a physio because that's part of, you know, when they exercise. Yeah. Well, dealing with your emotions and having downtime for the nervous system to switch off properly and to allow your parasympathetic nervous system to kick in and relax, that needs probably more so than the
that's right
the other. But we've never really been taught that.
Yeah,
or shown
that's exactly right.
That.
And because there's been such a jump in generations, we still have the expectations of what we saw our parents do and our mothers do, etc., etc.
Yeah, and our Western world isn't, you know, when we're increasing our workloads, not decreasing. While technology helps, sometimes it's part of the problem.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You can never switch off.
You can still never switch off. So that's probably more my passion now, is allowing, you know, men and women that ability to put their needs first. Yeah. And even if they can do it daily where it's only 5 minutes or 10 minutes with a yoga pose, or where they get to sit in meditation, or they have a cuppa outside and they just breathe. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it has to be consistent. Yeah. It's probably my... Yeah.
So, you know, now you do the kinesiology, you do the yoga. Is this something that you want to further explore even more, or, you know, what sort of things are you thinking about for the future?
For the future. So, I obviously see clients one-on-one, my kinesiology clients, and I also do the food DNA hair testing because that made a massive difference with me knowing what foods are compatible with my body. So that's always there as well. And then the yoga is more 2 or 3 hour type workshops. I run a few classes. I run a class monthly now in Gippsland and a retreat.
So you still can't help yourself though.
No, but so I go to Gippsland for 4 days a month and see clients, and I run a yoga class or a retreat. Retreats once a quarter and the classes is every other month. But my family's there. Yeah. And for me, it's the excuse of, if I didn't have that, I would probably only go down once or twice a year.
So it's a nice way to kind of check in on everybody.
See my mum, see my school friends. And I now work where I do 2 days, I have a day and a half off, and I have 2 days. And I had to learn that because I was burning out again. So I'm continually, and this is what we do, we teach what we need to practice most. So I consistently having to learn to make sure that I look after myself first. But in terms of moving forward, I'm actually running a rest and restore retreat out near Warburton in October.
Beautiful.
One, to service my both Melbourne and Gippsland clients, but it's really for 2 days to switch off. It's in an off-the-grid house.
Oh, awesome. Yep.
There is Wi-Fi, but there's a little yoga studio on the property, but you're in nature.
Fully immersed.
Beautiful.
I
am also looking at doing an online type of program as well, with a mix of yoga, kinesiology, meditation.
So bringing it all together.
Yeah. And whether it's a 8-week program or whatever it might, I haven't fleshed it out. Yeah. But that's something so that I can reach more than just my one-on-ones.
Yes.
Because as a practitioner, you can only see so many one-on-ones. And I have a lot of people like, oh, can you add a day here? And it's like,
but you don't want
I've had to say no.
You've had to set those boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah, because these are my hours.
Yeah.
And
so the people pleasing is like, I'm sorry, but no.
My little inner child goes, come on. And I'm like,
you can do it.
Breathe.
Yeah.
No, I can't. Sometimes I will. Like I'm going to the Philippines for 3 weeks, for literally 3 weeks to do nothing. Probably the first holidays I've had to do that. Yeah. And so I've fit in a couple in the next week where I wouldn't have usually.
A couple of extras.
Yeah, in different, But generally I've had to be like, these are my hours.
Yeah. And that's hard.
And that's been challenging.
Yeah. Because I think that's challenging for every woman in a different way.
Absolutely, in their own way.
Yeah, exactly.
Depending on, their belief systems and how they were brought up.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
welcome.
for your time today, Ilana. It's been enlightening hearing all about your journey. I've known you obviously for a while, but I didn't know all the intricacies of all of that.
I mean, it wasn't supposed to be kind of like a but that's kind of my journey started from being sick as a 3-year-old, and it's just evolved from there. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
You're
Ilana.
welcome.
We'll chat to you
Thank you.
soon.
All right.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the couch. We hope you've enjoyed the She Will Shine podcast, and we'll see you next time.